So what's going on, everybody? I'm James, and today I'm going to be sharing with y'all the rest of my testimony of what was left off from the testimony video that me and Maddie have made. Go check that out on my channel and her channel. I'll put her link in here, and pretty much, if you haven't watched it yet, what happened was I used to be a drug dealer, so that's what happened, and I ended up changing and becoming a Christian. So what had happened had led up to these points in God's divine provision. I had decided at one point in my life I wanted some answers, and I felt like drugs were my route to getting these answers. And I used to always remember listening to Kid Cudi, and I'd always be like, he'd always say this one line, he'd be like, "Oh, I ate the shrooms so I could see the universe." And I was like, that sounds like a good idea. Maybe he found some answers that he was searching for. I'm going to do it the same way that he did it. So I decided I'm going to buy some mushrooms and try and find some answers. And I decided I wanted to buy a lot of them because I figured the more the better. And what had happened is I basically had experienced an encounter with God on these mushrooms. And I remember that before I had bought these mushrooms, let's kind of step back. I had bought in these mushrooms from this person named Zoe. And in the Bible, it describes Zoe being this word described as eternal life, abundant life. And, I didn't think of much of that at the time, but I was like, oh, okay. It's just a person I'm buying it from. And also, that time, I was supposed to go do this photo shoot with this random guy I met through Instagram, and he was very weird. He wanted me to send him pictures, videos of me flexing, and just the dark side of fitness. And I was not all about that. I had talked to my mom about it. She's like, "No, you should not do this." And I decided to not go through with it the day I decided to take the mushrooms. So, as you can see, there were some things that were going on before that had led up to this certain point. And what had happened was I took the mushrooms, and I remember I waited about 30 minutes or an hour, and then I started feeling all weird, and it felt very frightening. I felt like this anxiety come over me, and just very intense. And what had happened was I remember I had somehow come into the encounter in the presence of God. And I remember I'd asked a question, and every time I'd ask a question, I'd receive the answer instantly in my head. It was not my own voice speaking to me, but it was another voice. It wasn't even a voice. It was a knowing inside of my head. If that makes sense, you ever have a knowing of something? It was a knowing that I was in the presence of God. And I asked, "Are you the Hindu God? Are you the Buddhist God?" And he responded with, "I'm the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." And at first I did not know what to think of that, but actually I did know what to think, because I knew it was God. I knew there was no other God, that there was only one God. I'd never heard of the God of Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob, but I knew that it was the God of the Bible. And what had happened was I kept asking all these questions, and some questions I asked were, what is the answer? What is the point of all this in this life? I understood what sin, what was the downfall of mankind, of Adam and Eve. and that it wasn't based upon just Adam and Eve, but it was based upon you and your result of sin. And that it wasn't just them, because all of mankind was found through Adam. First it came from God, then he made Adam, and all of mankind was in the loins of Adam. And so it wasn't just him. Everyone tries to blame, well, why should I have to face the consequences of my sin for what someone else did in the very beginning? No, it was the result of your own actions and your own sin. Because by birth, you were born of children of wrath. And we are in need of God to be redeemed by his sovereignty and what he did on the cross. And so, what had happened also during the trip was that I figured out that all that mattered was the present moment, and that I needed to change my ways of living now. And it was very scary. It felt like I was dying. I thought I did die at one point, and it was just something that I can't explain. And I remember just at one point asking all these questions, and then at one point I just received like this understanding of everything. And I understood everything in the sense that it was incomprehensible. And it's so incomprehensible that I experienced this super intense feeling of love that it was from God. I just knew that it was from God, that I could experience no other love greater than this. And I have this verse to go with that, and it is in Ephesians 3:19. And it says by Paul, "May you experience the love of Christ, though it is too great to understand fully. Then you will be made complete with all the fullness of life and power that comes from God." And so, during also that time, I knew that everything in this life, without a doubt, happens for a reason. And that's why I'm saying that on that day, I was supposed to go do this photo shoot with this random guy. Who knows? He could have killed me for all I know. And I also bought the drugs from this person named Zoe. And it just so happened to be the meaning of eternal life and coming into the encounter of Jesus. I had two choices. I could have gone through and gone with the devil and had all the things in this world had to offer and die a spiritual death, or take hold of eternal life. And God obviously had destined me to take the route of eternal life. And because also during that time I had a vision of my dad and my grandpa. And my dad, he lives a life that is not very sustainable as would be seen as a Christian. And my grandpa, he's lived a blessed life that you would say, wow, like, how is this possible? What have you done for this to happen in your life? And it's only the result of things that Christ has done for him. And that's when I knew I had a choice I needed to make in the life I needed to live, and that God had shown me all this. It was like he would show me this because of his love, because of his grace. I had experienced this stuff. It was like all of this stuff that had happened just so I would be able to see this. He's like, do you see now? And that's what he's saying that I need to change right now. And I just remember pretty much the trip had ended and I was done. I wasn't willing to change still. Things in my life didn't change. I kept dealing drugs. I was like, yeah, that was pretty scary, but I'm still loving this life that I'm in. And a few months later, things still, my life started kind of tumbling down. And God had made that happen. He had to break me in order to build me back up. And that's what he has to do for you if you're willing to come to Christ. And it's not an easy thing, but once you're broken and you've been rebuilt, you can conquer anything in this life with God's power living inside of you. So what had happened is everything in my life came tumbling down. Pretty much relationships with my mom, friends, ex-girlfriend, everything had basically come to a complete toll. And I remember one day just talking to my friend on PS4, and I was thinking about eternity, and I was thinking about how eternity has always been here, and that there was never a time where eternity has not been here. We weren't here. We don't know. Eternity has, though. And I was thinking about just like him, my friend, and I was thinking about like have you ever thought of like if you had ever experienced someone else's life? And I was like, well, that's a pretty good thought to think. I'd never thought of that. And I started thinking of that through him, and then I started thinking about my life, what was happening. And during that time, I had bad issues with my girlfriend at the time, and I yelled at her and things were bad, and I placed myself in her shoes as if I had experienced that situation in her own experience. And it just made me feel like, dang, I would not want to experience that kind of result from my actions. And it gave me a sense of compassion, of understanding. And it really hit the ball whenever I was about to go hang out with some friends, throw these drugs out the window. I see my mom walking across this path, and that's when it all changed. I was thinking of placing myself in her shoes, and that everything that had happened before that had all led up to this moment right now for me to see that I needed to change. And that's what it is doing for you as well. That this moment, whatever you're coming through in this life, the time of salvation is at this moment right now. And you will not be able to change any other time than this moment. God is calling your name. Are you willing to answer? So that's pretty much what happened during this testimony. And there's going to be many more stories to come. I hope y'all enjoyed listening, and let me know if you have any similar circumstances, any encounters with God, because I'm always open to hearing them. So please leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, and y'all have a blessed day.